Hello, my friend, and thank you for tuning in to another episode of The Fool Writes Again, the podcast where I, Jinx, your host and imaginary friend, there's the burning question of what happens when you release a writer into the wild and he gets a chance to explore the world. So if you've ever been interested in topics such as plot development, world building, character creation, or even character motivation, then this is a podcast for you, so please stay tuned. With that being said, on this week's episode, I answer the burning question, what happens when you release a writer into the wild and he gets a chance to explore the world of business creation? And what better way to do that than start off with a couple scenarios. First one being this. Imagine you're an individual who really just wants to make some more money so you can live comfortably. You have your main job, but it doesn't really provide you with enough income to do all the things you want. Support your hobbies, travel the world, have time with your family. So you think to yourself that the best way to do it is to pick up a side hustle. You hear there's lots of different options out there and you find one. It suits all your talents and you think you'd be pretty good at it, and you decide you're going to pick up this hustle. You start off pretty slow with what you're doing. Not too many clients are coming your way, but eventually word spreads and more people are realizing you're super reliable with what you do. This service you're providing is excellent and more people start coming your way, and soon you're making more money off your side hustle than you are through your main job. And it gets to that point where why work your main job at all? If you don't have to work those hours, you can dedicate even more time to your side hustle. So you quit your main job and you dedicate your entire time to your side hustle and you start making more and more money. And eventually it gets to the point where you receive a letter in the mail, a letter from the government saying you owe them a lot of money. What happens next? If that's not quite the scenario for you, then how about this one instead? Imagine you're an individual who spent your entire life adventuring. You've gone into so many different dungeons and you've acquired so much loot, armor and weapons and little trinkets from all the dungeons you've explored throughout your entire life. And you think to yourself, you're finally getting too old to continue dungeon delving. But you don't have enough money yet to support yourself if you don't work. So what can you do instead? And it comes to you. You've acquired so much loot throughout the years that you could just start selling it. People would want to buy it. New adventurers want to buy weapons and armor, and magic towers would probably want to buy some of the trinkets and books you've acquired throughout the years. And you're like, this is the perfect way for me to make money. And you know the best way to do this is that your town has a market where all the merchants line up with their booths and everything, and they just start selling the wares to the populace. So you decide that one week you're going to go participate in this market. You gather up all your loot and things you're willing to sell into your wagon. You bring to town. You get to Market Street and you find an individual there that's in charge of things, and you go up to him and you tell him, I would like a booth so I can start selling stuff. The individual in charge just looks at you and says, where's your credentials? And you think to yourself, what credentials? What happens next? If that's not the scenario for you, how about this third one instead? Imagine you're a slightly older individual and you have several young kids that are going through school. And one day you go to work and it's a super busy day. Your phone doesn't stop ringing and you don't have time to get to all of it. But eventually you notice that one number in particular has called you so many different times, and they have left a dozen or so voicemails with you. And you think, okay, they must really want to get a hold of me. So you decide to check the voicemails. First one, you recognize the voice. It's one of your kids, and it says, I need help. Next voicemail, pretty much, I need help. And again, I need help. I need help. Where are you? Please help. Come get me. I'm in trouble. And as you're listening to all these voicemails that are getting more and more frantic, you get more and more frantic because you're thinking, what did I miss? What is going on? What happened to my child? Eventually, you decide to call the number back and you find out that your child has been selling stuff through the school and they have not been doing it legally, and they have now been hauled off by the authorities. What happens next? And just because I want to, here's a fourth scenario for you. Imagine you're an individual who's very creative and inventive. You've grown your entire life playing different games, and you think, I can create my own game. It shouldn't be too difficult. And you're right. You develop your own board game, and it is strategic and it's simple to play. The rules are easy, it's understandable, and it's not super hard to manufacture. And you want to go into business selling this game because you know it will make a name for you. and you want to see your board game on shelves across the world. Everyone will be dying to play this game. So you find a manufacturer to mass produce your game, and you find the other individuals you need to get your game across the world into different stores. And you do everything you need to get your game out there, except for one thing. A week after your game launches, someone else has launched the exact same game, and it is now competing with your game, and they are suing you for stealing their idea. What happens next? Well, that should be enough with the scenarios for now. Let's get to the next part. I'm not sure if you're aware, my friend, but recently I have launched my own business selling merchandise online. It is under my overall brand of Jinks'd World. The store itself is jinksdworld.store, JINKSDWORLD.STORE. And it's a store focused on supporting the artist, all kinds of artists, up-and-coming artists, artists who have been creating their art for years and have a giant following. I want to support them. So I've designed a couple t-shirts that are for sale. I've also designed a couple items for sale for this podcast. But my goal is not to turn this episode into an advertisement. My goal is to turn this episode into possible world building. The point of this is there are a lot of steps to follow to open a business. It's not just come up with an idea and create a couple of shirts and start selling them. You can do that, but you're likely to get in trouble by the government because you need a lot of other things. You need to get a business license. You need to get a tax number and a tax ID and bank account, and you need to register with the state. You need to register with the country. You need to register with the IRS. You need to register with your city even. And you need to get to the point where you can start collecting sales tax and all these different forms out there. So when I was starting my business, I came up with the name Jinks'd World because I've used that name for years for a whole bunch of different things. And then I had to turn and look for all the steps to start a business because I didn't want to miss something. I don't want to be hauled off to prison for missing something. I don't want to have to owe the IRS hundreds of thousands of dollars in back taxes because I didn't realize I had to pay them. I didn't know. I also didn't want to lose a profit for myself because I forgot to collect sales tax from customers, and now I have to pay sales tax on top of all the profit I've already earned. There are a lot of steps to jump through, and I did a lot of research. I talked to a lot of other people who started their businesses, and I checked through lots of different websites. I jumped onto Google to research things. I jumped to those who are super knowledgeable, who've owned businesses for years on what they need to do. I've looked at the legal websites. I've gone to my state government site and my city site and everything required because, again, I didn't want to miss a step. And as I'm going through all this stuff, I'm also talking to other people who want to start their own businesses. So we're both researching all these steps together, and we're finding different things, and we're sharing information along. And it really is crazy how much is involved with starting a business, even just an LLC, not a giant corporation, not a nonprofit, just a small single-person LLC. And I managed to do everything, and my business is up and running. It's been up and running for a couple months now. And in hindsight, it's really not that complicated when you know the steps. It's just not easy to find the steps because every state is different and every city is different. But as I was going through all these steps, I thought to myself, this is something I can actually include in my writing, specifically in my world building. And I came to this idea because my current work in progress is about an individual who is wanting to start a business. And it's relatively accurate, him wanting to start the business, because I don't need to go into too much detail. My book is not about telling people how to start a business, but I want my book to be realistic and accurate about how someone can start a business and the various things that's involved with it. So throwing out certain terms here and there, super helpful and good to know. Throwing out things that are completely wrong, not as realistic, unless I completely change the rules of my world to fit that, which is also part of world building, because it is your world. What are the rules when it comes to starting a business? How easy is it for an individual to start a business in your world? Is it as simple as putting a sign in their yard saying items for sale and no one has to collect on it? A customer comes up to the house and says, I would like to buy this. And the proprietor says, okay, give me money in exchange and I'll give you this item. Super simple. The individual, the proprietor, can sell the goods for whatever price they want and the customer will pay whatever the cost is. Easy. It could be that simple. Or is the business creation side of your world super complicated? Are there so many different steps that a person has to jump through? 100 different forms they have to fill out properly and in triplicate so they can send off to all the required parties. And if you miss one of these forms, your entire business is declined and you have to start again. You can't just fill out that form. You have to start from square one. Is it so complicated like that? And it's just bureaucracy on trying to figure out how to start a business and someone has to do the research to do this? Or are there consequences to not filling out the forms properly and not doing the business properly? In every one of my scenarios, I gave a consequence. The child is hauled off by the authorities because they were illegally selling something in their school. That could be keychains and stickers for all I care, not necessarily illegal narcotics. It's just because they weren't selling things by the book. They were not legally allowed to sell because they didn't do the forms to start a business. And now someone has to try to figure out what happens with getting them out of trouble because they were illegally selling stuff. Or in the last scenario where the individual gets sued for stealing a design. I said they forgot to do something, and that something is potentially get their product patented. Make sure everyone's aware that they own the rights, that it's their item, and that someone else can't just come and steal the idea and say this was theirs because they put in the lawsuit first. Are there mechanisms in your world to prevent against that? If someone sells something for the first time, is it automatically patented by them? Do they own the rights for so long and then they have to wait? Then anyone else has to wait so long before they can start creating similar items? I don't know. That's your world. But it's something to consider if you make that as a goal. In the first scenario, where the side hustle becomes the main job, and I made it where the individual owes the government a lot of money because they were not paying taxes the entire time because they weren't aware they had to. They thought they could just collect all this money. What happens in that situation? Do they have to go and pay all the taxes? Do they get thrown in prison because they didn't pay taxes? Are they able to make some kind of agreement with the government where they will pay so many taxes a month for the rest of their life so they don't have to pay it all at once? These are all different consequences that just depends on the legality and the rules in your world. And in the second scenario of the adventurer, I made that one really simple. The adventurer wants to sell all their loot and they want to go to the market, but they can't have a booth because they don't have the credentials. Who knows what the credentials are? In that town, in that world, it could be as simple as going to a merchant guild and saying, hey, I want to apply to be a merchant. And you have 3 forms to fill out. You get them approved and you're good to go. It could be something as complicated as you have to go in front of the king and essentially beg him to allow you to sell goods in that city. And then once he approves, he gives you an actual medal or something saying you are legally a merchant and you can sell stuff in that city. Who knows? They're all possibilities. And you don't have to go into details for a lot of this stuff in your story. Sure, I definitely am not doing that in my story, but I'm including things to make it more realistic and give my character a challenge, a conflict, if you will. His overall goal is to start this business empire, but here's small conflicts along the way. He has to get the business permit. He has to do the research, but he wants to get this permit, and the person he needs to submit the form to is not there. So now he has to figure out what to do. If the person's not there, how can he get this permit now on time and start his business when he wants to? Does he have to shift the opening of the business to the right because he can't get the permit on time? But everything else is based on the fact that his business will open on this day. It makes an interesting conflict. It's not super vital or anything, but based on what his goal is, it could be giant, it could be very small and minor. It can maybe take up a chapter or so, or it could be an entire storyline where he's trying to track down this individual and trying to figure out all the legalities and the different workarounds to get this business license going. Who knows? It makes interesting world building because it provides conflict, but it also provides goals for your character. Small goals along the way, stepping stones, if you will. My character wants to open a business. Okay, first goal, he needs to choose a name. Second goal, he needs to choose an idea for what his business is going to be. Third goal, he needs to receive and complete the application for a business license. Fourth goal, he needs to submit the application. Fifth goal, he needs to submit for his tax ID number. and so on and so on and so on. These are all goals he can have leading along the way because it helps him progress. And these are all actions he can take because it works towards a major goal he has of owning a business. So the world building behind this helps because how does someone own a business? How does someone start a business? Is it simple? Is it complicated? Can someone just bribe someone else and they can just give him the business? Is it easy to forge the documents required to be a business owner? What happens if someone's caught forging the documents and they've been illegally running a business? No one in the general public would probably know that because they can't recognize the difference. But if an inspector came by and realized, hey, where's your business license? Hey, this is fake and printed on a leaf. What are the consequences to illegally owning a business and illegally starting a business? Are they thrown in prison? Is there a death sentence, which seems extreme? Do they have to pay a fine? Do they have to cease and desist? There's a lot of possibilities, which makes it fun for world building because there's a lot of possibilities and you can make it fit however you want in your world. And it doesn't have to be consistent along the world. Here, each state is slightly different with what they require. When it comes to sales tax, you only have to report it in some states if it's above a certain number. In others, you have to report if it's above a certain number of sales. How's that work in your world? Is it consistent because there's one ruler in charge of everything and they strictly mandate that this is how it has to be followed? Or does the ruler allow every individual city to behave differently? In that case, does a person have to get multiple business licenses because they went from one city to another city? They're legally allowed to sell stuff in city A, but city B has an even more rigorous business license process. And now they can't sell there unless they complete the application and the process for that city. Who knows? It's very possible that this is what happens when someone wants to sell in another city. I don't honestly know what my entire business process will be in my book. I'm not going to make it so simple as they just set up shop. I'm going to make it so there is a process of some kind because I went through a process and I'm a little spiteful about that. But that's me. Whatever you choose to do, my friend, can be a whole different story because that's the joy of world building and writing. You can do what you want to. Make it your own. Have fun with it. Make it super complicated. Make it someone's goals. Make someone have conflict with it. It is all world building. It's a process behind it. And if you go well with this process, who knows what other processes you can change and incorporate into your world. This is the process of owning a business, but what's the process of getting a building for your business? Is it a typical real estate process that someone has to follow? What is commercial real estate like in your world? How does someone buy a building for their business? How does someone buy a warehouse for their business to store all their merchandise? Do they even need a warehouse? Or are they doing just service? Are they a handyman of some kind that goes to a house and repairs doors and windows and fridges and electronics and all that stuff, and all they really need to store at their place is tools? With that in mind, let's ask the question are there tax write-offs for different things in your world? For me, I can write off different things on my taxes because I bought it for my business, whether it's like my iPad because I'm designing stuff, or different things, software because I use the software to create items or record things or anything like that. World itself have tax write-offs that someone can incorporate and use to their advantage, so they don't owe nearly as much at the end of the year. If they use their own tools, are they beneficial, or do they have to buy new tools? Hey, maybe your character decides they want to start a handyman business, and your government is so helpful with new business owners that they actually provide all the tools to the new business owners to get started. So your character doesn't have to actually worry about going and buying a hammer and all this different stuff to do his business because it's provided for him. And more so, how does your world treat new business owners versus established business owners? Do they want to help the small little new business, or do they prefer to help the big corporations? How are they treated? These are all different things you can incorporate when you think about the world building behind business creation. I can keep going on and on and on because there is a lot involved in business creation. These are all different questions to ask yourself. What is the actual process of owning a business and starting a business? and how can I tweak it to fit my world? What parts of it do I like? What parts of it don't I like? What parts do I want to make more complicated? Who knows? The story is yet to be written, so you can play with it however you want. And again, this is world building, so you don't need to include all of it exactly in your book. Include enough of it to make someone understand the process a little bit, and it'll be more realistic. Too much will become information overload. But if you include just that right amount, people will believe it because it feels realistic. Now, my friend, it's getting to the point of the episode where I have to call it a day. Though before I do, I have a writing prompt for you. Write a story about an individual who decided to start a business, but they didn't want to fill out all the paperwork, so they decided to get their credentials forged. Now, I don't care the genre of the story. It could be horror, it could be fantasy, action, or romance. And I don't care the format, whether it's poetry, flash fiction, a journal entry, or even a song. As always, all I really care about is you make the most out of it and have fun with it. But it really is time for me to let you go. If you enjoyed the content of this week's episode, please give me a follow. And if you want to visit my store and support me a little bit more, visit my store at jinxedworld.store. That is JINKSDWORLD.STORE. Till next time, have fun writing.